Okay, good morning everyone, and Chazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Monday morning as we are studying together a new Parashah, my friends. Parashat Ki Tetze. Ki Tetze means when you will go out. Our Parashah tells us that when you go out to battle, if you go out to war and you find the enemy has tried to set up women to entice you, you are allowed to take them and to be yours. Okay, and there are certain provisions and guidelines. And then the Torah goes on and says, very troubling and difficult halacha. Okay? And this is a halacha that everybody is bothered by till today. And before you jump and yell and kick, let's first understand and then we'll elaborate, okay? But the Torah tells us a very complicated halacha. Pasuk says, right at the beginning of the parasha, Ki hiye leish ben soreru more. If a person will have a wayward child, a defiant son, enenu shomeya bekol aviv ubkol imo, who does not heed the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, veyiseru oto, they rebuke him, he doesn't obey, lo yishma lehem, with all the discipline, with all the chastising, with all of the rebuke, he doesn't listen. So here you have a kid, a troubling kid, a monster child, okay? And I think many people could relate to this. We have difficult children. And what does the Torah say? What is the solution? All of a sudden, Torah gives over here very hard verdict. Torah says, what do you do? V'tafsu bo avi ve'imo. The parents shall grab him, ve'otziu oto, bring him out to the elders of the town, ve'ameru, and they'll say, b'nenu zeh soreru more. We have over here a difficult kid who's disloyal and defiant. Enenu shomeya bekolenu. This kid doesn't listen. Zolel vesoveh. He's a glutton and he's a drunkard. He eats and he drinks all day. This kid. What do we do with him? We can't anymore. We had it. Enough. Torah then says one pasuk, and that's the end of the paragraph. Urgamuhu kol anshe iro ba'avanim vamet. Then the town's council shall stone him to death. And you will sweep away evil from your midst. Everyone will hear and everyone will be afraid. Period. End of topic. Holy smokes. What in the world? How could this be God? How is this Torah? How does this make sense? What happened to mercy? What happened to second chances? You have a kid who's doing a little bit of a difficulty, and all of a sudden, and the truth is, not only are we bothered by this paragraph, but matter of fact, you should know that the Zohar says that Moshe Rabbeinu himself, when God told him this topic on the mountain, Moshe is like, wait, what? I'm not writing that. That's a joke, right? Moshe Rabbeinu was refusing to write down this paragraph. God said, write it. Moshe says, no way, I'm not writing that. That's ludicrous. God said to Moshe, but it's not ludicrous to me. Makes sense to me. You write it down. Moshe said, what do you mean? It doesn't make any sense. How can I write this down? Until finally God convinced Moshe and showed Moshe how, although maybe on a physical level, what's written doesn't make sense, but on an esoteric level, on a deeper level, the lesson is a very powerful lesson. And then Moshe said, okay, if that's the case, then I'll write it. So of course, on a simple level, this is very hard to understand. And the truth is you should already know that the case never happened, right? Let's read together Rabbeinu Bachya. Rabbeinu Bachya says, "En chiyuv skila." You should know that we don't kill this kid unless a few conditions are met. He's quoting the Gemara over here. First of all, yignov mishel aviv. He has to steal from his parents. If the kid steals money from someone on the streets, then that's not the case. The case is, A, he had to steal from his parents. Then he takes the money, ve'yikneh basar ve'yayin. He has to go out and buy meat and wine. Ve'yochalem, then number 3, he has to eat them outside of his parents' property. And also, b'chavura shekulan rekanim, he has to eat it with people that are also much less than noble. Okay, he has to eat it with rekanin, empty people. So far 4 conditions. He has to steal from his parents. He has to buy with that money meat and wine. He has to eat it outside of his parents' property. He has to be eating it with people that are from a very bad society. Ve'yochal habasar hai, he has to eat the meat in a not raw but not cooked. Chai ve'eno chai, what we call in between, medium. Okay? How do you like your meat? Medium, medium rare. He has to be eating it medium, medium rare. Mevushal ve'eno mevushal, cooked but not cooked. Yeah? So it can be well done and it can be raw. It's got to be medium. Right? Kederech shehaganavim ochlim. That's how robbers eat. Robbers, they don't eat meat fully cooked and they don't eat meat fully raw. They eat it in between. You know why? By the way, this is mentioned in the Gemara. Many different halachot, they when it discusses food, as an example, I'll give you an example on Shabbat. Yeah, if a person has meat and if they take a piece of food or meat or whatever it is and they cook that piece of meat, yeah, at what point is it considered cooking? If I take a piece of meat and I throw it on the barbecue for a split second and then I take it right off, of course I did a sin. But on the Torah level, at what point did I cook? At what point is something considered cooked? So according to halacha, the language is ma'achal ben derusai. That means the moment something is brought to a temperature of ben derusai means medium, right? Medium rare, medium. Once you cook it that much, that's already considered cooked, and that's a problem. And it has different applications. But who is Ben Derusai? Ben Derusai was the name of a robber. Okay? So you see that this idea of medium cooked, medium well, medium raw, medium rare is the way Ganavim eat. Robbers, why? Robbers, they can't eat fully cooked steak. They don't have the luxury to sit and put a handkerchief and a napkin and have a whole meal. Robbers are on the run. They're running away from the police. And therefore, robbers are eating their food medium. Okay? So you have to have, over here, look how many conditions. He has to steal from his parents. He has to buy with it meat and wine. He has to eat it outside of his parents' home, and he has to be eating it with low class people. And he has to be eating the meat medium. Ve'yishteh hayayin, and also the wine. It can't be diluted. It has to be in between wine. You know, wine back then was very strong. You had to mazug, it had to add water. Today, the wine that we buy in the store is perfect. You buy it, you just drink it the way it is. Maybe you have to let it air out a little bit. But back then, the wine, they had to add a lot of water to make it to what it is today. That's called mazug. So he has to be drinking it, not diluted, but not completely undiluted either. In between. These are some of the conditions. There's a lot more. Aval, however, im ganav mishel achirim, if he stole from not his father and mother, he stole from someone on the street, or she'achal achila zo b'rshut aviv, or he ate it in his parents' home, or she'achal habasar hai, or he ate meat raw, or ayayin hai, or the wine was completely fresh. Hareze patur, then this kid is not killed. Lefi she'iev sharlo le'himashech bazeh, the rules don't apply to him. And also another condition. You ready? How old are we talking about? What age of a child do these laws apply to? They apply only for 3 months of a person's life. From the moment that he turns 13 and for the next 3 months. The moment he hits 13 and 3 months and 1 day, no longer applies. If he's not 13 yet, no longer applies. So the window that such a story could happen, again, is very, very small. We're talking about a 3-month window, and a lot of conditions need to be met. And therefore, our rabbis said, right? And also it's a ben and not a bat. It's got to be a son, not a daughter. Right? Fine. What does he say? Din zeh shel soreru more lo ira me'olam. You should know, before anyone slams the book and leaves this class all angry at what kind of Torah is this, where's the mercy? It's true. This story, you should know, never happened. Din zeh shel soreru more lo ira me'olam. Lo haya ve'lo atidin lihiyot. This never happened, and it never will happen. This is one of the rare cases in the Torah which is only theoretical. Never was applied. Not practical, zero practicality. Only theoretical. So the Gemara asks, if that's the case, Lama nechtav, so why are you writing a theoretical story? Torah is a book of law. Torah is a book of lessons. Torah is here to teach me. Torah is not philosophy. Torah is life. Torah is real. If it's not real, why are you writing it? Answer, Derosh vekabel sachar. Because when you study this story, when we study the story, we'll learn lessons for life. The story is not a true story. The story never happened. It's what we call a parable. It's a story that didn't really happen. It never will happen, but there are still lessons that we can learn. Just like when you read fake stories, right? Disney cartoons. I don't know, right? They're not real stories, right? The fox and all these parables. They're not real stories, but there's still lessons to be learned. And Ben Sorer More is not a real story. Not a real story. And it never happened. It never will happen. It's impossible to happen. There's so many conditions that need to be met. But there are still lessons that we can learn from the story, lessons that we can learn as parents, as educators. And what are the lessons? What are the lessons that we are to learn? So Rabbeinu Bachye, right? What's his lesson that he learned? So he over here, he writes, Torah over here is teaching us. Look at this, very, very interesting. Lelamed, to teach us, chiyuv ahavat Hashem. How far theoretically should my love for Hashem go? That's the lesson that we're supposed to learn. My love for Hashem should go so far that it surpasses any other love that I have in the world. En lecha ahava hazaka be'olam. Because the truth is, no one loves anything more than their own children. Think about, what do we love most in life? As much as we love the Yankees, and as much as we love ice cream, as much as we love anything, we don't love anything more than our children. The strongest love is the love of a child. And therefore, God's saying, we have to be willing to love Hashem even more than that. That's the lesson. That's the only lesson over here. Of course, we're never going to kill a kid. Chas v'shalom. That's not the Torah's way. Of course, we know. The Torah writes about Teshuva. People change. How could you kill a kid at 13? All of a sudden, you write him away? Of course not. Just because now he's stealing, he's taking wine, you're right. He's not doing good things. He's eating, he's a glutton, he's getting drunk. But so what? How many kids do we know at 13, at 14, at 15? These are teenagers. This is adolescence. Okay, so what? If the kid's doing things at adolescence, you just write him off now and you assume the kid's going to he's going to murder? By the way, this is what Rashi says. Rashi says technically, when we're killing this kid, he didn't do anything wrong yet that's deserving of death penalty. Right now, as of now, he didn't do anything wrong yet. Yes, he stole, but you don't kill a thief. What we're doing is the Torah is going into the future. And the Torah is saying if this is how the kid behaves, then in the future, he's going to do much worse. Today, he's stealing, but tomorrow he'll kill for that piece of meat. Tomorrow he'll kill for that piece of wine. And therefore, based on the future, we say let the kid die, let him die innocent. Don't let him become a murderer and have to be killed guilty. Right? And again, that is all nice, but that's not life. We don't say that. We don't kill people that they're sinning at 13. We believe in Teshuva, we believe in change. People find themselves. Very good. Someone just wrote in the chat, Yishmael, who himself was a bad kid. And right, we don't look at the future. Right? Ishmael in the future, his descendants are going to kill the Jewish people. But God said, it doesn't matter the future, it matters now. People could change, you never know. You never know. Like the New York Lotto, you never know. Right? Right? I don't know over there. Good luck. But what in the world is being taught over here? So that's the Rabbeinu Bachye's lesson. The case will never happen. Never does a Torah prescribe that we should kill a child. Of course not. It's just saying this is how far theoretically we should go. This is how far theoretically we should go for our love of Hashem. That it should surpass even that of our children. Even the love of our children, Hashem should be one up on top of that. By the way, who could think which story in the Tanakh was this the test of a certain person? Who could think of it? Very famous story. This was the test of Avraham Avinu. Akedat Yitzchak. What was Akedat Yitzchak? God said, as much as you love Yitzchak, and you waited 90 years to have this kid, and you're an old man, and you love Yitzchak, but I want you to show me that you love me more than him. And Avraham went ahead and he showed God. He was willing to put his son and say, God, as much as I love him, I love you more. Whatever you want, I'll do for you. And at the end, God says, okay, very good. And don't kill him, by the way, because that's not what I really wanted. That's not really what I wanted. That's the same lesson. Ben Soreru More never happened. And Akedat Yitzchak, God was also just kidding. It was only hypothetical. It wasn't practical. God never wanted Avraham to kill Yitzchak. He just wanted to see. He just wanted Avraham to prove that that's how much he loved him. But practically, of course not. Don't ever kill your child. That's not a halacha. That's not the way we live life. That's Rabbeinu Bachia's take. That's how he understands this nuance, this lesson. That's the lesson according to him. There are different lessons that we can learn though, my friends, as well. On top of this lesson of Ahavat Hashem, of loving Hashem, there is another lesson that we learn from this not practical, theoretical case of the wayward child. If you pay attention, it says in the beginning of the pasuk that this kid, enenu shomeya bekol aviv ubkol imo. He's not listening to the voice of his father, to the voice of his mother. Notice how it's written voice and voice separately. The voice of the mom and the voice of the dad. And all of a sudden, when they bring him to Beit Din, the language changes. They bring him to the court and they say, here is our child, enenu shomeya bekolenu. He's not listening in our voice, bekolenu. All of a sudden it switches. The paragraph starts off with kol aviv and kol imo, the voice of his mom and the voice of his dad. And then it quickly shifts to the voice of them. It doesn't say that he is not listening to the voice of the mom and the voice of that. It's inconsistent. It starts off with the parents being listed separately, and then it ends off that they're written together. And based on this, the Gemara says another halacha. And the halacha is that we only kill a child if this whole case, another condition. Remember we listed how many conditions before? 5 or 6? Let me give you a 7th condition. The kid is only killed if the parents have a unified voice, if they have the same voice, if their voice is the same, bekolenu, if they sound alike, they have to sound alike, they have to look alike, then and only then do we say, okay, fine, the kid is guilty. But if the parents don't sound alike, then the kid is innocent. We don't kill the kid. And again, there's such a powerful lesson over here, and that is a lesson to parents. How, when we're raising our children, we have to make sure that in the home, there has to be voices of the parents have to be identical. What does that mean, identical? That means that the parents have to be on the same page. Sometimes parents, they come into a marriage and each one has their own upbringing. And the father thinks this is the right way to raise the kids, and the mother thinks this is the right way to raise the kids. And that's okay. There are differences. The problem is we bring that into a marriage and then they never end up coming to a unified voice. And their whole marriage, every day, is another fight, it's another struggle. And the father says one thing, and the mother overrides, and then the mother says, and then the dad overrides, and they end up living, and the kids grow up in a home where they see constant fighting. They see no harmony. They see no unified vision. There's no goal. There's no one path. The mom says you could watch. The dad says no, you can't watch. And then the mom says, but I said. And when a kid is raised in a house that there's no unified voice, then it's not his fault if he turns out the way he is. He never got a normal upbringing. And again, what does that mean? Does it mean that as parents we have to agree? It doesn't mean we have to agree. But what it means is there has to be respect amongst the parents. Even if I don't agree to the method, whatever we discussed beforehand, whatever we decided was the best thing, we have to at least, right, whether sometimes the husband gives in, sometimes the wife gives in, sometimes you have to go to a third party and find a compromise. But sometimes parents use children as pawns, as ways of making themselves feel good and overpowering and getting one up over their spouse. And if that's the case, if there's no unified voice, if there's constant fighting, if there's constant derision in the home, that's not the kid's fault if he turns out a ben sorer mureh. And therefore the Torah says, if they have one voice, then okay, then the kid's guilty. But that's never the case, because there's always going to be, unfortunately, fighting in the home. And the moment there's fighting, then automatically one has to wonder, maybe the child turned out the way he did because he saw machloket. And it's going back to what we spoke about last week in the class. The most important thing in a home is the shalom bayit, is the harmony in the home. More important, the issue that we're discussing, whatever the issue is okay. We have an issue, we're trying to figure out what's the best way to raise the kids, or where should we spend the holiday, or what kind of house should we build, whatever it is. That's fine, that's an issue. But to never allow the issue to overpower and to trump the harmony, the shalom. The moment there's no longer peace, the moment the issue becomes bigger than the harmony in the house, is the moment that we have lost sight of the bigger picture. Because ultimately the most important thing for a home is a functioning home. If the house is dysfunctional, if there's fighting, if there's mocking, if there's name calling, if there's insulting, if there's constant words or remarks being thrown from one spouse to the other, and the kids are growing up in such a house that they see no shalom between the parents. If there's no voice, if there's no one voice, if there's no one call, if it's not kolenu, if it's not our voice, if it's my mom thinks this and my dad thinks that, if a kid grows up in that type of home, then you could hardly blame that kid for the way he turned out. And therefore, the Torah writes, in such a case, the kid is innocent, it's not his fault. That's a very, very powerful lesson that we could as well learn from the Ben Sorer Umore. There is one last lesson that I'd like to learn from today of the Ben Sorer Umore, of the wayward child. And that is a lesson that we've maybe said last year, but it's still such a very, very powerful lesson. And that is from the Shemuel. The Shemuel was a grandson of the Kotzker Rebbe. And let's see what he writes over here. And then he quotes the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin. Ben Sorer Umore, if this child, the wayward child, Ratzu avi ve'imo limcholo, if the parents want to forgive, mochalin, then they could forgive. Says the Gemara, if the father and mother see that their child is 13 and 1 month or 2 months, up to 3 months old, 13 years and up to 3 months, right? He's in that 3-month window. And they see that he's following all the conditions. He fulfills all the conditions. He checks off all the boxes. He's stealing from them, and he's eating it with uncivilized people, and he's eating it out of their property, and he's buying the meat, and he's eating the meat at the right temperature, and he checks off all the boxes. And technically, this is a perfect case that really he should be brought to the Beit Din. He should be brought to the Sanhedrin, to the court, and they should execute this kid. Here we found a perfect candidate for Ben Sorer Umore. And the parents are looking at each other and they realize, holy cow, this is what the Torah spoke about. This is the kid. This is the case. We have a unified voice. We look the same. We talk the same, whatever it is. And still the kid is disobeying. Says the Gemara, on top of all of that, if a father and mother decide, you know what? But we like him. He's a good kid. No? He's so cute. I don't know. I forgive him, you forgive him? Yeah. Okay, let's not take him to Beit Din. Are they allowed to do that? Of course they're allowed to do that. Ben Sorer Umore Shiratzu Aviv Ve'imo Limcholo Mochalino. If the parents want to forgive him, if they decide they don't want to bring him to Beit Din, then they forgive. I'll give you an example. Let's say you see someone's child is a classic, quintessential, perfect candidate, Ben Sorer Umore, textbook case. He's the Ben. You see your neighbor. That's the kid. Are you allowed to go next door, knock on the door and say, hey, your kid is Ben Sorer Umore, come, let's bring him. Let's take him to Beit Din. Let's go. Time to execute him. The parents could turn to you and say, it's true, he checks off all the boxes, but I spoke to my wife about it and we decided to forgive our child. We're going to forgive him. We don't want to kill him. He's abus. He's nice. We like him. We like him. The Gemara says, of course, it's up to the parents. If they forgive, then he's okay. That's the Gemara. And asks the Shemuel, I don't understand. How could the parents forgive? Hello, let's understand what's going on over here. Why are we executing, again, theoretically, why are we executing this 13-year-old kid? Alma, what did he do wrong? Did he do anything wrong yet to deserve death penalty? No. We're killing him because one day he's going to walk in the streets. This behavior, we can detect this behavior, where it's going to lead to. We know this behavior in 10 years, what it looks like. In 10 years, it looks like this kid roaming the streets, needing money, needing wine, needing drugs, not having the money to buy it. He's going to try to steal from people to get that money. And not only will he steal from people, he's going to end up killing those people. Okay? So we're killing him now because one day he's going to be a murderer. So asks the Shemuel, if that's the case, who is this kid's crime against? Who is he really guilty to? We're killing this kid not because of what he did today to his mom and dad. He stole from his mom and dad. Big deal. We're killing him because one day he's going to kill the people of the community. He's going to kill society. One day, this little 13-year-old kid's not going to be little. He's not going to be 13. He's going to be a big boy. He's going to roam the streets, and he's going to be a murderer. If that's the case, how could mom and dad have the power to forgive him? It's not their choice. It's not up to them. It's not what he did to you. It's what he's going to do to society. If anyone should forgive him, it should be society. Maybe we should ask everyone in the town, guys, what do you say? Should we forgive this kid or no? What do you think? Should we forgive him? Let's take a vote. That's maybe an option. Ask the people. But you can't ask the mom and dad to forgive him. Just imagine for a second. Imagine I punch you in the face. Okay, I punch you in the face. And then you take me to court and I say, no, but it's okay. My mom and dad forgive me. It's okay, Your Honor. I'm innocent. You can't press charges. My mom and dad forgive me. What does it mean, your mom and dad? Your mom and dad can't forgive you for what you did to a guy in the street. Right? You have to have the guy in the street forgive you. So if that's the case, here, the kid, it's not so much what he did to his mom and dad. It's what he did, it's what he's going to do to society. So it doesn't help that his parents forgive him. So what does the Gemara mean when it says, if the parents forgive, then it's okay? And over here, he explains over here something very, very powerful. And he, again, asks a few more questions. He says, well, how do you kill a kid just because he did something wrong? What about Teshuva? People change, right? Don't we believe in Teshuva? If a guy marries a girl, we're doing Masechet Kiddushin, those that are up to the Daf Yomi. If a man says to a lady, Hare ad mekudeshet li, you're sanctified to me, on condition that I'm a fully righteous person. What's the halacha? And we know this guy last night did all the sins in the book. But he says this morning, here you go. And she accepts the ring and she puts it on her finger. What's the halacha? Halacha is, Hare zo, she is mekudeshet. She has to now, if she wants to separate from this man, she needs a get. She's fully married right now to this guy. But why? We know the guy's a wicked guy. Says the Gemara, maybe he did Teshuva. Maybe last night, when he went to sleep, he felt bad. And in a second, Teshuva, this guy became a tzaddik amur. This guy became a fully righteous guy. So let's understand. If you have a guy who could change in 1 second, in one thought, then why all of a sudden this kid who's 13, we don't believe in Teshuva anymore for him? Yom Kippur doesn't help for this kid? He doesn't come to shul on Yom Kippur? I thought we allow everyone in shul on Yom Kippur. Everybody's allowed in, right? I mean, I hope so. That's what we believe. That's what we're taught, right? This is Judaism, no? So what exactly is the whole paragraph teaching us that we don't forgive a kid? We kill him. What happened to Teshuva? What happened to Teshuva? Explains the Shemuel. You know why Teshuva works? Why does Teshuva work? What does Teshuva mean, by the way? Anyone know what Teshuva means? Teshuva is not repent. Repent means I did something wrong and I'm sorry. That's not what Teshuva. What does Lashuv actually mean? Anyone speak Hebrew? Literally, what does Lashuv mean? Lashuv means to return. To return means, I'm not saying sorry, I'm not going to change who I am. Opposite. I'm going to go back, Lashuv. I'm going to return to who I really am deep, deep down. Deep down. And this is something that Chassidut really stresses so much. I'm reading this amazing book that you guys have to get, okay? It's called Positivity Bias, okay? I got it from a friend of mine, Rabbi Shapiro, and he's a great Chabad Chassid and rabbi over here in Jersey. And it's an amazing book. You guys must get this book. It's called Positivity Bias. And in it, you see how really the Rebbe, it's based on Lubavitcher teaching. And you see how Chassidut in general and Lubavitch specifically really stressed how every Jew is a soul. Every Jew deep down is holy. You know, he was once asked, what does a Rebbe do? What does a Rebbe do? Listen to what he replies. He says, the Jewish people are like the earth. The earth contains nature's treasures hidden underneath. One needs to know, however, where to dig. Dr. Freud dug in the human soul and found swampy waters and mire and myrrh. Dr. Adler found rocks. Contemporary psychiatry searches for ills and traumas that must be uprooted. But when the Rebbe digs, he finds gold, silver, and diamonds. What that means is that every person is an Ishama, every person is a soul. Every person, no matter what we do, no matter how ugly we are underneath, you know, just going back to a second of this analogy to earth, a man complained once to his Rebbe. He said, you know, Rebbe, you look at people and on the outside they look beautiful, They smile, how are you? So nice to meet you, Shabbat Shalom, pa 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 pa. And then people really deep down, they're so ugly. Right? How many people know that in their own spouse, maybe, when they're in public eye, they're very kind. They go home behind closed doors, they're nasty people, right? We know people privately, they're not so nice. It's all a facade, it's all a show, it's all a sketch. The Rebbe said back, it's not so. The truth is, if you look at the world around us is beautiful. Look at the trees, the flowers, the colors, magnificent. But what happens when you dig under the earth? Right under that beautiful tree, under those beautiful flowers, what do you find under? You find earth, mud, worms, right? Earth, right? It's ugly. But you know what he said? But if you continue digging and you go even deeper than that, what do you find? Diamonds, gold. You see, every one of us, we have 3 layers. We have the outside, and we have the inside. But the truth is, there's an even deeper layer called the inside. And the inside is the neshama. And that soul, like the pilot, the pilot in the oven, that light is always there. And that light can never be extinguished. And the truth is, there's no such thing as a Jew who's far. Every Jew has a connection. Every Jew has a pilot. Every Jew has a neshama. And sometimes it's covered. Sometimes we maybe do things that we don't really let it shine. But Teshuva means not that I'm becoming someone different. Opposite. I'm going back to who I really am. Lashuv means to go back. Yeah? When a person does things that are inappropriate. A man once came to the Rebbe, he said, Rebbe, I'm doing things and I feel like a hypocrite because, I go to shul on Yom Kippur, but my whole year is not like that. The Rebbe smiled and said, it's the exact opposite. You are a person who goes to shul. The rest of the year, you're a hypocrite. Right? The rest of the year, you're not doing what you're supposed to. That's not the real you. The real you is the guy who goes to shul. Deep down, we're holy. The truth is, the Rambam writes, when it comes to a person who has to give his spouse a get, certain people are obligated to write a get to their wife. Right? Sometimes they're not obligated. Sometimes you are obligated. And the Rambam writes that when such a person is obligated to divorce his spouse, makinoto. You take the guy, and if he says, I don't want to give my wife a get. Unfortunately, there's people today, they leave their wives in aguna, they leave their wives alone without a divorce, and now she's stuck because she can't get married because she's technically married to the first guy. And this is very, very sad. There are people called, right? They're get refusers. They don't want to give gets. And you have women stuck for decades sometimes. Unfortunately, it's very, very sad. And the Rambam writes that in certain cases, you take the guy, he says, I don't want to give it, and you beat him up. Makinoto, ani. You beat him, you beat the living daylights out of the guy till he says, okay, I'll write it. And he writes the get. And as he's writing it, we know one of the details of writing a get that has to come willingly. And the Rambam asks, so you're making the guy giving it. It's hardly called willingly. You can't force a guy to willingly do something. And you know what the Rambam answers? The Rambam says it is willingly. You know why? Because deep down, this Jew wants to do the right thing. Deep down, he wants to give the get. Deep down, he wants to follow the Torah and the mitzvot. He just can't because he's caught up in the day-to-day, stuff of life. But when we convince him to give it, that's not him out of character. That's him in character. Him giving the get is him really. Because inside, maybe on the inside, he doesn't want it. Maybe consciously he's thinking, I don't want to give it. On the outside, he's saying, okay, I'll give it. Inside, he's thinking, I don't want to give it. But says the Rambam, but inside, in the deepest layer, on the third, at his core, he wants to give it. All the way inside, he said he wants to do the right thing. And this is what we have to realize, that my friends, every one of us, and that's what a Rebbe's job is. That's what an educator's job is. That's what a parent's job. A parent's job is not to look inside their kid and see ugliness. The world will do that, trust me. You don't need to do that. There'll be plenty of people out there in the world that'll find ugliness in your children. Our job as parents is to look inside and to see beauty, to find gold, find silver, to find diamonds. That is what we must do when we see our children. There's another story he brings over here of a businessman whose name is George Rohr, and he was a big supporter of many Lubavitch activities. So he once had Rosh Hashanah service for over 200 unaffiliated Jews. Rosh Hashanah services coming up. He once hosted prayers for 200 Jews unconnected. And he was very nervous. So he came to the Rebbe. He said, Rebbe, what do I tell them? How do I inspire these people without any Jewish background? And the Rebbe paused him. And the Rebbe gave him a piercing look and he said, no Jewish background? You must look at every one of them and tell them that they have a very Jewish background. They come from Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. No Jewish background? That's what's going through their veins. They have the blood, the DNA, all the way back to the holiest Jews. What do you mean no Jewish background? Of course they have a Jewish background. That's the essence of a Jew. A real Jew, that's their core. That's what they really have. The other Jews, that's outside, right? The things that we do that's wrong, that's not who we are. But who we are, at our essence, of course we are. Of course. And that is really why Teshuva works. Teshuva means I'm returning to that piece of me. I have a piece of me that ties me back. There's a link. There's a chain all the way back. Father after father after father, all the way to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. And therefore nothing is foreign to me. Because at the end of the day, I'm connected all the way to them. But what happens is sometimes when you have a child and the parents look at him and they say, you are good for nothing. There's no holiness in you. There's zero good in you. You're a waste. You are, I don't know where you come from. You must be a mistake. When parents use such language, when a parent severs that chain, when a parent cuts that rope connecting every single child all the way back to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, when the parent cuts that rope, if the parents cut it, then of course, how do you expect the kid himself, if the parents don't believe in him, how do you expect him to believe in himself? And that's what the Gemara means. When the parents forgive the kid, then so long that they forgive him, then he still has that rope. So long that the parents believe in him, then he still has that link, that chain, tying him back all the way to the forefathers. That's why if they forgive him, then we forgive him. Because so long that they forgive him, then Teshuva is an option. Then he could come home. Because he's not perfect, but his parents believe in him. His parents could forgive him. And if my parents could forgive me, then that's enough. That's enough to know that Teshuva will work. But the moment the parents don't forgive the kid, the moment the parents say, we don't believe in you anymore, if the parents don't forgive him, then of course the kid was going to go through life ben sureu moreh, wayward. What do you expect? No one believes in him. His own parents don't believe in him. How do you expect the kid to go through life successful? He brings another story over here of a Chabad Chassid, who was a successful diamond merchant. And he once had a private audience with the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe. So the Rebbe was praising certain individuals that this fellow was actually shocked that the Rebbe was praising them. He couldn't believe it. He said, Rebbe, you sure that guy's a good guy? I don't see that. I see that guy doesn't talk, he doesn't do, he doesn't learn, he doesn't help. And eventually he says, I don't see it. How do you? So the Rebbe said back to this guy, tell me, what do you do for business? He said, me, I'm a diamond merchant. He said, you sell diamonds? Tell me, could I see? Show me a diamond. Let me pick one diamond. Okay, he shows him a bunch of diamonds. The Rebbe looks through them. He says, this one, this is very beautiful. The guy looks, he says, it's not so nice. He says, what do you mean? This is a beautiful, beautiful diamond. He says, maybe to you it looks beautiful, but to me, you know which one's beautiful? This one. He says, look at this. The Rebbe looks at it, he says, nothing special about this one. He says, Rebbe, that's a very special diamond. He's like, but what do you mean? I'm telling you, I'm looking at it, it doesn't look special. He says, Rebbe, I'm a maven. I understand these things. I deal with this. So trust me when I tell you, this is a very good diamond. The Rebbe smiled and he said, you understand diamonds. I understand souls. So trust me when I tell you that that guy is a very special person, and that guy is a very special person, and that soul is a very special soul. You don't understand souls. I understand souls. You understand? This is such a different way of understanding life, of looking at people, of seeing people in a positive light. When we see someone misbehaving, that's not them. That something got the better of them. Something happened to them. There's life, there's nature, there's nurture. But real them, the real them, and this is what it means, lelamed lezchut, to find people the benefit of the doubt. When we see people that are misbehaving, we see they're doing the wrong thing, to be able to think to ourselves, but there has to be an excuse for that person. There has to be. There's something special about this person. And I got to find it. I got to look for it. Maybe on the outside, and maybe on the inside. But on the inside, they're diamonds. One day in the summer, 1991, there was a lady waiting online to get a bracha from the Rebbe. And she wanted to get a bracha, and then she wanted a special dollar bill that she could get from the Rebbe to give out. I'm not sure if anyone here ever got the dollar from the Rebbe. Unfortunately, I was too young. You got one, Stephen? Very special. Do you have it? You have it? Okay, beautiful. You got two of them. Could I have one? So the lady was waiting, and finally when her turn arrived, she was so exhausted from the heat. She said, Rebbe, I've been standing here for only 1 hour and I'm already exhausted, and you've been standing here for hours and hours, and how are you not tired? And she smiled and she said, and the Rebbe smiled and said, when you're counting diamonds, you don't get tired. Yeah, when you're counting diamonds, you don't get tired. And therefore, the idea that every Jew is holy, every Jew has a soul, every Jew has a neshama, no matter what they're doing. The truth is, Rav Meir Lau one time, he said how he's involved in doing kiruv rechokim. He's bringing people that are far close. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, there's no such thing as rachok. Every Jew is close. Every Jew is close. Every Jew has a neshama. We're doing kiruv krovim. Maybe we could bring close Jews closer. But everyone's close. Everyone's a student. Everyone's a child of Avraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov. We have to realize that. No matter what we did, no matter who we are, no matter what we've done for the last 50, 70, 90 years, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I have that soul. I have a neshama, and in a second I can do Teshuva. And the Torah is reminding us that as parents, how powerful our belief in our children is. To see our children in that way. I just want to share with you one last story. A story, could break someone's heart when they read it. So I'll read to you the story that Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson brings from his brother, Rabbi Simon. And I'll read to you word for word. He says, a number of years ago at one of my weekly classes, I was discussing the fact that each one of us was sent to this earth with an indispensable mission. And this mission, each human being with unique qualities, all the necessary faculties we need to fulfill our respective mission. Even if someone is weak or deficient in one area, even one born with a handicap, this same person is blessed with other strengths that compensate for and allow this individual to realize his or her calling. Some of these strengths may be often less than obvious, and then it is our sacred responsibility to help uncover these deeper resources. Nothing is holier and more dignified than to help a person discover hidden potential, allowing him to actualize his unique life calling. After the class, a striking young man approached me. This is Rabbi Simon talking. As he got closer, I saw that he suffered from some motor complications. He asked to speak with me privately. After everyone left, we sat down and he began to tell me his story. His words came out slowly due to a speech impediment, and he shared with me that he was born with a rare disease that affected his nervous system, which also impaired his mental capacity and growth. He later discovered that his parents gave him away as a newborn after hearing that he was diagnosed with severe mental handicaps. Over the years, it turned out the diagnosis was not completely accurate, though he still suffered from many problems. At that point, his parents were not willing or unable to handle him, and they chose to have no contact with him. His parents were very wealthy and prominent, and they provided that he be cared for in a quality institution for children with special needs. But they never came to visit him, and for all practical purposes, he was brought up as an orphan. A privileged orphan, he was told. All his physical needs met, except for the most important one, unconditional love from nurturing parents. As much as I tried, I could not completely control my feelings from pouring out for his soul. However, more powerful than all his pain was the refined light shining out of this young man. He was simply an exquisite human being, with a special charm, clearly the result of years of struggle. He had emerged with a very rare type of warmth, which basked everything around him in a soft glow. And tonight, he tells me, you said that each one of us has a unique mission, despite appearances. I too, like the fellow in your story, lack certain abilities. But unlike the wealthy man in your story, I do not know what strengths I have in return. Can you help me discover my special qualities? I was taken. He wasn't aware of his own level of refinement. This tortured man could give more love and more kindness than most people I know, yet he was crying for help. What can I say? My heart went out to him in the deepest possible way, and we began to communicate regularly. He would attend many of my classes, and I would converse with him about many things, and he would always elicit in me kindness I did not know I had. From time to time, he would address his own feelings of rejection and his desire to confront his parents. He had tracked them down, but he was terrified of contacting them. Mischievous thoughts began to creep into my brain about contacting them myself. But what would I say? Who am I to call them? I try not to be judgmental. Who knows what they have endured? What caused them to give up and desert their own child? But is it being judgmental to ask whether any parent has such a right, no matter what the excuse? And is it my role to be the one that confronts these parents? After a few months of hesitation, I got the number and I finally made the call. Hello, good afternoon. This is Simon Jacobson. I'm a friend of your son and would like to speak to you about him. Deathly silence on the other end of the line. What do I say now? Hello, hi. May we speak for a few moments? What can I do for you? Was the brisk and cold response. I know your son. He's an extraordinary man, and I thought that would make you proud. Click. The father hung up the phone. What now? Call back? I decided to wait. A few days later, I tried again. This time, the secretary did not let the call even go through. So I left a message saying that this matter is very personal and can have profound long-term consequences for good or for bad. I tried again the next day, and what do you know? He took my call. Now what? I simply said, please, you have to understand, I'm not in the business of meddling. I'm not critical or judgmental. I simply feel from the depths of my heart that it would be life-transforming for you and your wife to meet your son. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to go there. We did what we felt was best for everyone. I'm sure you did. Still today, now your son has grown to be a tremendous soul. He needs to see you and you need to see him. Please consider that. I'll get back to you. He didn't. But now I was on the warpath. So I called again. He did apologize for not getting back and said that his wife would not be able to do it. It's too uncomfortable. He mumbled something about having long ago buried this. But I persisted. So I'll arrange for you to meet your son without your wife. No, not yet. After a few months, he finally relented, and together with his wife, we scheduled the fateful meeting that everybody dreaded. At their insistence, which surprised me, they wanted me to be present at that meeting. I figured to serve as a bit of a buffer. The big day came. We met at their lavish home in their living room, tea, biscuits on the table, all choreographed to the tea, except for the emotions that would be released. Oh man, this was one of the most heart-wrenching experiences I would ever endure, and I wondered what havoc did I wreak. But it was too late. Here we were. Initially, everybody was cordial, even detached, like strangers meeting about buying a house. What do you do? Where have you traveled? Are you a Yankees fan? How's the weather? You get the idea. After sitting silent, trying to be invisible, and letting things take their natural biological course, I finally piped in and said, the first serious statement of the evening. Your son told me his story. He must have a lot of anger inside of him, but he hasn't shown it to me, or maybe not even to himself. You must have many feelings yourself. I really don't belong here, but since I am here, allow me to say that your son is one of the most beautiful people I know. I have discovered through him new horizons of human dignity and the capacity of the soul to shine in this harsh world. I think it would be truly life-changing for you to get to know each other. Before I stood up to leave, our hero turned to his parents and uttered a few words that could melt any heart. With a stutter and a bit slowly, his speech was impeded, as you may recall. He began, Mama? Papa? I could tell that he worked long and hard to get those words out. Mama, Papa, I am not perfect. You too are not perfect. I have forgiven you. Can you forgive me? We all burst into tears. I made my way out of the door, leaving them alone. I'm not perfect. You two are not perfect. I've forgiven you. Can you forgive me? Can you forgive me for not being perfect? Their handicapped child asked. Can you forgive me for putting into your life a child who was less than perfect? This is Ben Sorer Umoreh, my friends. To be able to for a parent to forgive their child. Says the Shemuel, so long that a parent forgives the child, so long that we believe in our children, then there is hope. Then there is one day going to be a turnaround. Then they can change. Then they can do Teshuva. Then they can come back. Then no matter what, no matter how bleak, no matter how far, no matter how distant, no matter where they are in the world, no matter where they move to, no matter who they're going out with, or maybe even who they married, a parent never disconnects with their child. Never, never, never. I got a call the other day about, unfortunately, a kid from the community who's going out with a Goya and some Spanish lady and plans on marrying her. And the parents, they're calling to ask, should we, disconnect? Should we disconnect? We have to show our child that we disapprove, that it's not okay. This is not what we do. Of course, it's a very delicate question, very hard question to answer, and I'm not a professional, but I actually did send out a text to Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson himself, and just to ask him if what I thought was correct, and he confirmed that it was. And in essence, what I told the parents was that you're gonna marry this. He's gonna marry this girl, and you disconnect from your child, and then what? You think it's gonna help? You think he's gonna come back? You think he's ever gonna turn around if you do that? And you should know, most of the time, these marriages don't last. At least if there's still connection, in a few years, there's someone to come home to. There's mom, there's dad. He'll remember that you always kept the line open. This is the lesson, my friends. Ben Sorer Umoreh. A parent never says about their child, it's over. So long that the parents forgive him, if the parents could still say we love you, and no matter how imperfect, no matter what you've done, no matter how much you broke our hearts, but we still love you and you're still always welcome in this house, then in that case, there's hope for this soul. Then Teshuva is an option. That is not a Ben Sorer Umoreh. That kid is not a wayward child. For such a kid, there is hope and there is a future. May Hashem bless us as parents, as educators, as teachers, to always remember that each and every one of us, each and every one of our children, each and every one of people around us has that beautiful soul, that diamond. And even if on the inside there's ugliness, to be able to look inside, even deeper still, and we'll find something beautiful that's just waiting to shine, waiting to be lit. We'll stop over here, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.